A year will pass whether you use it or not. Think about that. In 12 short months, you could be living a completely different life, or you could be standing in the same place, wondering why nothing changed. The difference lies in what you do today. Not next week, not someday, today. In this message, I want to show you how to stop wasting the most precious resource you'll ever have, your time. You'll learn why drifting is the surest road to failure, why conformity robs most men of their best years, and how a single change in focus can make the next 12 months the most productive of your life. If you've ever looked back and felt regret that another year passed with little to show for it, stay with me, because I'll give you the principles and the discipline to change that pattern forever. We live in the richest time in human history, with opportunities greater than kings once dreamed of, and yet most people waste their years as though they were endless. They work without purpose, they live by habit, they do what everyone else does, and then they wake up 20, 30, 40 years later, wondering where the time went. This isn't because they lack intelligence, it isn't because they lack talent. It's because they never learn to direct their minds, to set their goals, to live each day with purpose. They drift. And drifting, they waste the years that could have carried them to success. But here's the good news. You don't have to drift. You can begin today, right now, to harness your time, to set a worthy ideal, and to move toward it with clarity and persistence. And once you make that decision, you'll discover that every day, every hour, every year becomes meaningful because it's moving you somewhere you've chosen to go. In the next 80 minutes, I'm going to take you through a journey that can change the course of your life. We'll uncover why most people waste their years and how you can break free from that pattern. We'll talk about the danger of conformity, the power of goals, the role of attitude, the discipline of persistence, and the ultimate purpose of service. Each of these ideas is simple, but together they form a roadmap that can turn the next 12 months into the most productive year you've ever lived. I'll share with you stories and examples that make these principles unforgettable, and along the way, I'll give you challenges, small tests you can apply immediately, so you don't just listen but act. Stay with me, because there are truths in this message that may seem surprising, even counterintuitive, but if you apply them, you'll never again look back on a wasted year. Instead, you'll live each day with purpose, and you'll arrive at the end of the year knowing you've advanced, knowing you've grown, knowing you've lived as few men ever do. Here's something most people completely miss, and it costs them the very best years of their lives. They believe that because they are busy, they are moving forward. They rise each morning, they go to work, they fill the hours, and they assume that activity must equal progress. But activity without direction is only drifting. And drifting is the surest way to waste not only a day, not only a year, but an entire lifetime. We see it all around us. Men and women going through the motions, repeating the same routines, copying the crowd, assuming that because everyone else is doing it, it must be the right way. Yet if that were true, wouldn't most people be living lives of freedom, prosperity, and fulfillment? The evidence tells us otherwise. Consider this sobering picture. Take 100 men, all starting even at the age of 25. Ask them if they want to be successful, and every one of them will say yes. Look into their eyes and you'll see hope, confidence, energy. There's a sparkle there, a belief that the future belongs to them. Now follow those same 100 men until they reach 65. What do we find? 1 will be rich. 4 will be financially independent. 5 will still be working. And 54 will be broke, dependent on others for their very needs. That means 95 out of every 100 fail to achieve the success they once dreamed of. Now stop and think about that. 95% failure in the richest country the world has ever known, in an age of opportunity that kings of the past would have given anything to experience. How can that be? It isn't because men don't work hard. Most of them work harder than they ever thought they could. It isn't because they're not intelligent. Many are bright, capable, and full of potential. No, the reason is conformity. The opposite of courage in our society is not cowardice, it is conformity. It is acting like everyone else without knowing why. It is drifting with the crowd, hoping the crowd knows where it's going, and discovering too late that it doesn't. Most men waste their years because they never stop to question where they are going. They never chart a course of their own. They are like ships leaving the harbor with no captain, no destination, no chart. The engines may be running, the vessel may be moving, but it is drifting, and sooner or later it will end up wrecked, stranded, or lost. And here's what makes this so dangerous. Conformity feels safe. It feels comfortable. The man who follows the crowd feels he has company. He thinks, if everyone is doing it, it must be right. But safety in numbers is an illusion. 95% of men are headed for failure, and following them is like marching confidently off a cliff. True courage is not in copying what everyone else is doing. True courage is in deciding for yourself, setting your own course, and moving steadily toward it, even when others don't understand. That is why conformity is the trap. It disguises itself as security, but it delivers only wasted years. Now, let me paint the contrast. Imagine two men, both rise early, both go to work, both put in long hours. Outwardly they look the same, but one is drifting, following the crowd, waiting for something to happen. The other has a clear purpose. He knows where he's going. Each day his work, his thoughts, his choices are moving him closer to his worthy goal. To the casual observer, both men are busy, but one is wasting his years. The other is investing them. One will end his life with regret, the other will end it with satisfaction. The difference is not in effort, not in intelligence, but in direction. Now you may be wondering, but what's so wrong with drifting a little, with taking life as it comes? And the answer is simple. Life will not stand still for you. While you drift, time moves on. While you conform, the clock is ticking. A wasted year doesn't return. A wasted year compounds into regret. And regret is the heaviest burden a man can carry, because it is the knowledge that he had the time, he had the chance, and he threw it away. That is the high price of conformity. So if drifting is the disease, what is the cure? The cure is purpose. The cure is direction. The cure is deciding once and for all what you want, setting your mind upon it, and refusing to be swayed by the aimless majority. And that is where we turn next, because, to see the true cost of drifting, we must look more closely at what wasted years really mean, and why they are the most expensive thing a man can ever spend. The greatest tragedy of drifting is not merely that it keeps a man from success, it is that it steals from him the one thing he can never get back: time. Time is life itself. Money can be lost and earned again. Opportunities can pass and later return in different form. But the hours, the days, the years, once they are gone forever. That is why drifting is so costly. The man who wastes his years is not simply delaying success, he is throwing away the very substance of his life. And when at last he awakens, he finds himself with little left to invest. Think of the man who spends his 20s drifting, waiting for conditions to be right before he begins. He says to himself, I'll start when I'm older, when I have more experience, when I'm ready. But then 30 comes, and he says, I'll start after I settle down, after the children are older, when I have more money. Then 40 arrives, and he says, I'll start when things calm down, when I have more time. And by the time he reaches 50 or 60, he looks back and sees that the years have slipped away. The opportunities he thought would wait for him have vanished. The energy, the optimism, the daring of youth have faded. And he realizes, often too late, that he has wasted not a year, but a life. Now, here is the hidden cost of drifting. It feels harmless in the moment. One wasted day doesn't seem to matter. One wasted week slips by unnoticed. A year of drifting can be explained away. But the years add up. Each wasted year compounds regret. Each missed opportunity narrows the path ahead. And regret, once it takes root, becomes a heavy anchor. It whispers in the quiet hours, you could have been more, you should have done more. Nothing is more painful than to know you had the time, you had the chance, and you chose to waste it. That is the high cost of drifting, not the failure of effort, but the failure of using the only currency of life, time. Let me give you a picture. Imagine a man who has worked faithfully for 40 years. He has gone to the office each morning, he has filled his hours, he has done what was expected, But he never chose a direction of his own. He never set a worthy goal. He simply followed the pattern. And now, at the end of those 40 years, he looks back and realizes that while he worked, he never really advanced. He has money enough to survive, perhaps even comfort, but deep inside he knows that he has not lived. He has simply passed time. The years that could have been filled with growth, contribution, and achievement are gone, and all he has left is the memory of days spent waiting. That is a bitter harvest. Contrast this with the man who chooses a goal, who directs his time with purpose. He too works 40 years, but every year is an investment. Every day moves him closer to something he has chosen. He may not reach every ambition, but he reaches many. And more than that, he has lived. He has tasted the joy of progress, the satisfaction of growth, the pride of contribution. When he looks back, he does not see wasted years. He sees a life well lived. The difference is not in the hours they were given, for both men were given the same. The difference is in what they did with them. Now you may be tempted to say, "But I have already wasted years. What hope is there for me?" And here is the good news. Today is always the right day to begin. You cannot change yesterday. You cannot reclaim the time already spent. But you can decide today that no more will be wasted. You can decide that from this moment forward, every day will count, every hour will be invested, every year will move you closer to your worthy ideal. And if you make that decision, then even the years you regret will take on new meaning, for they will become the fuel of your determination never to drift again. So let me ask you plainly, how much longer will you wait? How many more years will you give to drifting? Another 5? Another 10? Or will you decide today that your time is too precious to waste, that your life is too valuable to drift? Because the truth is this: time will pass anyway. The year ahead will come and go whether you use it or not. The only question is what it will make of you. And that brings us naturally to the cure. For if drifting is the disease and wasted years are the cost, then what is the antidote? The antidote is direction. The antidote is a goal, not a vague wish, not a borrowed ambition, but a clear, worthy ideal that you choose for yourself and pursue with purpose. That is the secret that turns wasted years into productive ones. And that is where we will go next, as we uncover the power of clear goals and the freedom that comes when you begin to live by them. Now that we've seen the high cost of drifting, let us turn to the cure, because nothing changes until we have a new definition of success. And here is something most people never do. They never stop to ask themselves, what's success really, Island? They chase after it, they talk about it, they envy others who seem to have it, but if you were to stop the average man on the street and ask, what is success? He would stumble and hesitate, perhaps say something about money, or a bigger house, or recognition, or perhaps even being happy. But none of these answers is enough. Because if success were money alone, then only the wealthy could be called successful, and yet we know many wealthy men who are failures as human beings. If success were happiness alone, then only those free from difficulty could be called successful, and yet some of the greatest men in history knew hardship, suffering, and trial. No, success must mean something deeper, something clearer, something that can apply to any man or woman in any circumstance. And so, after years of searching, I found the simplest and most powerful definition. Success is the progressive realization of a worthy ideal. Not a sudden leap, not a single event, not a trophy on the shelf, but the steady daily movement toward a goal you have deliberately chosen. Think of those words, progressive realization. That means success is not in the arriving, but in the advancing. It means that the student working toward a degree is as much a success as the graduate. It means the young man saving his first dollars toward his business is as much a success as the seasoned owner. It means the mother raising her children with care and love is as much a success as the author finishing a book, or the scientist completing a discovery, or the teacher shaping young minds. Each one is realizing a worthy ideal, step by step, and that steady progress is success. Now notice the word worthy. That is where the power lies, because not every goal is worth the effort of a human life. A man may pursue pleasure, idleness, or destruction, and he may reach it, but that is not success. It is failure in disguise. A worthy ideal is one that lifts you, improves you, challenges you, and contributes to others. It may not look grand to the world, but if it is truly worthy, it will be grand in your own heart. A man running a corner shop with integrity and service may be more successful than another running a great company without purpose. A teacher shaping children with devotion may be more successful than an executive driven only by greed. Worthiness is measured not by applause, but by alignment with the best within us. Now here is the danger. Many men stop setting goals once they reach their first plateau. They finish school, they get a job, they buy a house, they raise a family, and then they drift. The goals that once drove them are complete, but instead of setting new ones, they settle into routine. And slowly, without realizing it, they lose the spark, the drive, the joy that comes from progress. I once knew an attorney who was the very picture of this. He had worked tirelessly for years, built his practice, earned well, and reached every material goal he had set. And then, one day, he found himself strangely restless, almost depressed. He confessed that though he had everything he thought he wanted, life felt flat. The reason was simple. He had run out of goals. He had no new mountain to climb, no new horizon to reach. Success had turned into stagnation, because he forgot that success is not a resting place, it is a continual progression. And so here is the truth that must guide us. Success is not a matter of possessions, but of direction. You are successful the moment you begin moving toward a goal you have chosen, and you remain successful as long as you keep moving. The moment you stop, the moment you settle, the moment you cease to progress, you lose the essence of success, no matter how much you have accumulated. This is why the cure for wasted years is to redefine success in these terms. If you are moving daily toward a worthy ideal, you are successful already. If you are drifting, no matter how busy or comfortable, you are wasting your life. So let me ask you, what is your definition of success? If it is vague, if it is borrowed from others, if it is something you cannot state clearly in a single sentence, then it is not a definition at all. It is only a wish. But if you can say, I am moving toward this worthy ideal, then you are already on the road. And the moment you set such a goal, the moment you redefine success for yourself, the wasted years end and the meaningful years begin. Now this naturally leads us to the question of how. If success is the progressive realization of a worthy ideal, then how do we hold that ideal before us? How do we keep it clear enough to guide our steps, strong enough to withstand doubt, vivid enough to draw us forward day after day? That answer lies in the power of visualization and expectancy, the compass of the mind that always points us toward the life we choose. If success is the progressive realization of a worthy ideal, then the next question is obvious: how do we keep ourselves moving steadily in the right direction? For a man without a compass may set out with the best of intentions, but before long he will drift off course, swayed by every wind, carried by every current. He may work hard, he may strain with all his might, but without a compass, he will not arrive at his destination. And the compass of human life, the thing that sets our course and keeps us true, is the power of visualization and expectancy. You and I become what we think about. That is not poetry, it is not a clever phrase. It is a law, as certain as gravity, as unchanging as the sunrise. A man's life is nothing more than the sum of his dominant thoughts. Now, consider this carefully. The picture you hold of yourself, the image you carry in your mind day after day, is quietly shaping your future. If you see yourself as defeated, timid, and unworthy, you will act that way, and the world will treat you that way. If you see yourself as confident, purposeful, and strong, you will carry yourself differently, and the world will respond in kind. Life is a mirror, and it reflects faithfully the image we hold inside. That is why visualization matters. It is not empty daydreaming, as some suppose. It is the deliberate act of setting your inner compass. It is holding before your mind the picture of the man you intend to become, until your thoughts, your actions, your habits, and your circumstances are drawn into alignment with it. Think of the Wright brothers. Long before they ever left the ground, they saw the airplane in their minds. They pictured it, they believed in it, they expected it. The world laughed at them. Learned men insisted that flight was impossible. But the Wright brothers held to their inner picture, and because of it they persisted, and because they persisted, they succeeded. Every invention, every achievement, every creation in human history existed first in the mind of its creator, held as a vision before it existed in the world. And the same law governs you and me. Whatever picture we hold with faith and expectancy will, in time, become our reality. But here is where most men fail. They allow their minds to drift. They let circumstances, fears, and doubts paint the picture for them. Instead of holding a vision of growth and success, they dwell on worry, on limitation, on obstacles. And what happens? Life faithfully reflects it back. They become the very things they feared. They say, "I knew it wouldn't work," not realizing that their failure was born long before in the picture they allowed to dominate their minds. That is why drifting is so deadly. It doesn't just waste time, it fills the mind with pictures of defeat, and those pictures become self-fulfilling prophecies. So, what is the solution? The solution is to deliberately choose the image you will hold, and to hold it with expectancy, not as a vague wish, not as a distant dream, but as a present reality. Each day you see yourself already moving toward your worthy ideal. Each day you act as though it were true, and slowly but surely, your life bends to match the vision. Expectancy is the fuel of this process. A wish says, "It would be nice." Expectancy says, "It will be." A wish leaves a man idle. Expectancy drives him forward. A wish makes excuses. Expectancy finds a way. And life, like a faithful servant, responds not to wishes but to convictions. Let me make this plain. Suppose a man decides his worthy ideal is to be a writer. If he waits until the world declares him a writer, he will never write. But if he visualizes himself as a writer, if he expects to succeed, then he will act accordingly. He will write each day. He will improve. He will persist. And sooner or later, the world will confirm what he already knew. The picture came first. The result followed. The same is true in every field, whether in business, in teaching, in art, or in family. We grow into the picture we hold. Now let me ask you, what picture fills your mind each day? Do you see yourself as drifting, as unlucky, as bound by circumstances? Or do you see yourself as strong, capable, and directed? Because whichever picture you hold, you will become. That is the law, and no man escapes it. So here is the challenge. Set your compass. Decide today what image you will carry. Write it down. Picture it clearly, and then expect it. Each day, see yourself in that role. Speak as though it were true. Act as though it were already yours. And in time it will be. For the law is unchanging. We become what we think about. And this brings us naturally to the next question. If visualization is the compass, then how do we use it daily? How do we turn it from a once-in-a-while thought into a way of living, so that every hour, every action, every decision is aligned with our worthy ideal? That answer lies in the practice of living with our goal, not as a distant dream, but as a present identity, and that is what we will uncover next. Now here's something most men never quite understand. It isn't enough to set a goal once and then tuck it away like a forgotten promise. A goal has no power if it lives only on a piece of paper or in the back of the mind. It must become a living, breathing part of your daily life. It must be present in your thoughts each morning when you rise and in your reflections each evening when you rest. To waste another year is simply to drift without that daily anchor. But to live with a worthy ideal is to carry it with you as naturally as you carry your own name. You don't have to remind yourself of your name, you know it. In the same way, your worthy ideal must become inseparable from your identity. Think of how most men live. They speak vaguely of things they might like to do someday. Someday they'll write a book. Someday they'll start a business. Someday they'll travel, or learn, or build. But someday is the great thief of life. Someday never comes. What comes is today, and today is always squandered when the goal is postponed to tomorrow. That is why it is not enough to hold an ideal in the distance. You must bring it into the present and live with it daily. You must act as though it were already yours. For the truth is this: When you act in harmony with your goal, even before you have reached it, you are already successful. Success is the progressive realization of a worthy ideal, which means the moment you begin to live with it, the moment you align your days with it, you are in success already. Let me give you an example. Suppose a man sets a goal to become physically strong and healthy. If he waits until he sees the muscles or until the scale shows the weight he desires before he calls himself successful, he will miss the joy of the journey. But if he lives daily with his ideal, if he sees himself as strong and healthy now, then each workout, each meal, each disciplined choice becomes a fulfillment of that ideal. He doesn't postpone his identity, he lives it now. And in time, the outer results match the inner reality. The same principle applies in business, in art, in learning, in family. Don't postpone your identity until the world applauds. Live as the man you intend to be, and the world will catch up. Here's the danger of not doing this. Joy fades quickly when a goal is treated as a finish line. Think of Christmas morning. For weeks, children anticipate, dream, imagine. The joy is in the expectation, the build-up, the living daily with the vision of what's to come. But the morning comes, the gifts are unwrapped, and within hours the thrill fades. Why? Because the anticipation is gone. The goal was reached, but it was not replaced, and so the joy evaporates. Life is exactly the same. If we set a goal and treat it as an ending rather than a living direction, we find ourselves flat and restless once it is achieved. The cure is to always live with a worthy ideal ahead of us, to always be moving, always progressing, always reaching. Success is not the moment of arrival, it is the continual unfolding. So let me ask you, are you living with your ideal daily? Do you rise each morning with it before you, guiding your choices, shaping your actions, giving meaning to your hours? Or do you treat it as something you'll get to someday? The difference is vast. One man wastes his years in delay. Another invests his years in progress. And though both may appear busy, one is drifting and the other is succeeding. Make no mistake, living with a worthy ideal daily is not complicated. It is simply a matter of alignment. You write your goal clearly, you picture it vividly, and then you ask yourself, in the small decisions of the day, does this action move me toward my goal or away from it? That question alone, asked consistently, will change the course of your life. Because it will bring your goal out of the clouds and into your present reality. It will transform your days from random activity into deliberate progress. And when you live this way, no year is wasted. Every year becomes another chapter in the story of your success. And this brings us naturally to the next great subject. For if goals give us direction and visualization keeps us on course, then what is the force that fuels the journey, that colors every step, that determines how the world responds to us? That force is attitude, the great multiplier of success. And that is where we must turn next. Here is a truth that explains more about success and failure than almost any other, and yet it is so plain, so obvious, that most people overlook it. Life is a mirror. It reflects back to us not what we wish for, not what we talk about, not even what we sometimes hope, but what we consistently think, feel, and expect. The world around us is always showing us a faithful picture of the world within us. If we are cheerful, confident, and expectant, the people we meet and the circumstances we encounter will reflect that spirit right back to us. If we are bitter, suspicious, or defeated, the world will echo that attitude in 1,000 ways. Our environment is not an independent force shaping us from the outside. It is a mirror, returning to us the very things we first sent into it. Let me show you how this works in everyday life. Imagine two men walking into the same room. The first man enters with a bright spirit, a smile, and a word of interest for those around him. People respond to him with warmth. Opportunities open to him. He leaves that room feeling accepted, encouraged, and respected. The second man enters the same room with gloom in his eyes, distrust in his heart, and a closed expression on his face. People withdraw from him, conversations falter, and he leaves that room saying, "See, I knew no one would welcome me." Both men experienced the same environment, but each saw in the mirror only the reflection of what he carried inside. I once knew a woman who moved with her husband to a new community. She stayed in her house, waiting for the neighbors to come to her, waiting for them to make the first move. Weeks passed and no invitations came, no friendships formed. She told her husband she had been rejected, that she wasn't welcome. But the truth was, she had never extended herself. She had never smiled first, never knocked on a door, never opened her own heart. The neighbors simply reflected what she had projected: indifference. Life is merciless in this way. It gives us exactly what we give it. It is cause and effect, not chance, not luck. And this principle applies not only in social matters, but in every area of life. A man who expects failure will find evidence everywhere that failure is inevitable. A man who expects success will find opportunities everywhere to prove his belief right. The salesman who approaches his day with confidence will find customers ready to listen. The one who approaches with fear will confirm his fear in rejection after rejection. The student who expects to learn will discover helpful teachers and insights at every turn. The one who expects to fail will see only obstacles and frustrations. Life reflects. That is all it does. And if we do not like the reflection, there is only one thing to do: change what we are projecting. Now, many will argue with this. They will say, but my circumstances are difficult, my environment is unfriendly, my opportunities are limited. Surely my attitude has nothing to do with it. But look closer. The man who believes he is limited will act in small ways, and those small actions will ensure small results. The man who believes he is unlucky will ignore opportunities when they appear, because he does not expect them to be real. The man who believes the world is against him will act defensively, and the world will reflect hostility back to him. The mirror is unrelenting. It cannot reflect anything other than what is placed before it. So, let us see the stakes clearly. If your attitude is poor, your life will mirror it in poor results, strained relationships, and missed opportunities. If your attitude is great, your life will mirror it in encouragement, cooperation, and success. That is why attitude is not a minor detail. It is the multiplier. It is the secret ingredient that determines whether your goals flourish or fail. You may have the finest plans, the clearest ideals, but if your attitude is negative, life will reflect failure. You may have only small beginnings, but if your attitude is positive, life will reflect growth and expansion. And so I ask you now, what is the prevailing spirit you carry each day? Is it gratitude, expectancy, and goodwill, or is it suspicion, gloom, and discouragement? Whatever it is, your world is reflecting it faithfully. And if you change your attitude, the mirror will change its reflection. That is the law. Now that we understand this, the question becomes, how do we build the kind of attitude that continually attracts the best, that fills our days with opportunity, that makes us magnetic to success? That is what we will turn to next, as we explore how to build the daily habit of expectancy. If life is a mirror, then the wisest thing any of us can do is to decide once and for all what reflection we want to see, and then carry ourselves in such a way that the mirror has no choice but to give it back. That is the great secret of expectancy. For what we truly expect, we tend to receive. Expectancy is not idle wishing, nor is it blind hope. Expectancy is a settled conviction that says, this is where I am going, this is who I am becoming, this is the kind of life I will live. When a man truly expects good, he walks differently. He speaks differently. He works differently. People sense it. Circumstances bend to it. And before long, his life becomes a reflection of the expectancy he carried within. But expectancy cannot be a passing mood. It must be built into us as a habit, as steady and automatic as breathing. Because in the heat of daily life, when doubts arise and obstacles appear, it is habit that carries us forward. If our habit is discouragement, we will return to discouragement. If our habit is expectancy, we will return to expectancy. And habits are built by deliberate practice. Each morning we must remind ourselves of the good we expect. Each day we must carry ourselves as though it were already true. Each evening we must look back with gratitude for the progress made, however small. Over time, this repetition forms a groove in the mind, and what once required effort becomes natural. Then expectancy ceases to be something we do. It becomes who we are. I once knew a man who kept a small card by his mirror. On it he had written just one word: attitude. Each morning as he shaved, he looked at that card and reminded himself to expect the best from the day. It was a small act, but over time it changed everything. His conversations grew warmer, his work grew steadier, his opportunities multiplied. Why? Because the reminder reshaped his habit. He no longer drifted into the day with a random spirit. He began each morning by deliberately choosing expectancy. And life, true to its nature, reflected that choice right back to him. Now think of the man who does the opposite. He rises already convinced that nothing good will happen. He mutters complaints before breakfast. He goes out into the world expecting irritation, disappointment, rejection. And what does the world give him? Exactly what he ordered. Doors close, people turn away. The smallest inconvenience looms large. He says, "See, I knew this would be a bad day," never realizing that he wrote the script himself. That is the law of expectancy. Whether positive or negative, life faithfully delivers what we expect. Here is the important point. You cannot fool the mirror. You cannot paste a smile on your face while carrying bitterness in your heart and expect life to give you joy. The reflection will be hollow, just as hollow as the spirit behind it. To build the habit of expectancy, you must work from the inside out. You must fill your mind with gratitude, with visions of growth, with reminders of your worthy ideal, until expectancy is no longer an act but a condition of your soul. Gratitude is the soil. Expectancy is the seed. Together they yield a harvest of opportunity, joy, and success. Let me give you a simple picture. Picture a cold stove in a cabin on a winter morning. A man sits before it shivering, saying, "Give me heat, and then I'll put in the wood." But we know better. The stove will never give heat until he places the fuel inside. Life is the same. We say, "Give me success, and then I'll be confident. Give me opportunity, and then I'll expect the best. Give me happiness, and then I'll be grateful." And life answers back, "Put in the fuel first." The fuel is our attitude of expectancy. The fire is gratitude. Together they create the warmth that makes life fruitful. So let me ask you, what is the habit of your heart? Do you rise each day expecting little and receive little? Do you expect failure and find it waiting for you? Or do you expect growth, progress, and opportunity? Because you can choose. And once you have chosen and practiced it long enough, expectancy becomes automatic. A man who expects good rises already leaning into the day, already alert to the possibilities around him, already confident that life is his ally, and the world reflects it back. Faithfully, inevitably, without fail. Now let's connect this to where we are going. We have seen the trap of conformity, the cost of drifting, the power of goals, the guidance of visualization, and the reflection of attitude. Now we see that expectancy must be built as a habit until it becomes second nature. But there is one more element we must add if we are to stop wasting years and begin building a life of real substance. That element is discipline, the decision to put these truths into practice each day, and persistence, the power to continue when feelings fade and the road grows long. And that is where we turn next. Now we come to the point where all of this must leave the realm of ideas and enter the realm of daily living. It is one thing to hear these truths, to nod in agreement, perhaps even to feel inspired by them. But unless they are put to work, they remain nothing more than pleasant thoughts, and pleasant thoughts, without action, change nothing. That is why I want to give you a challenge, a test that has the power to change your entire life if you will only take it seriously. I call it the 30-day test. For 30 days, discipline your mind to think only of what you want and never of what you fear. For 30 days, guard your thoughts as carefully as a watchman guards the gates of a city. For 30 days, hold before you your worthy ideal as if it were already yours, and refuse to allow doubt, fear, or limitation to take root. Do this, and you will discover in one short month the greatest power you will ever know, the power of your own mind to shape your destiny. Now let me tell you why 30 days is so important. Anyone can think positively for an hour. Many can manage it for a day. Some can carry it for a week. But habits are not built in a day or a week. They are built in sustained repetition. 30 days is long enough to begin carving new grooves in your thinking, long enough to weaken the grip of old habits, long enough to prove to yourself that you can control the direction of your thoughts. At first, it will feel difficult. You will be surprised at how quickly negative thoughts creep back. You will catch yourself drifting into worry or envy or self-pity. But each time you do, you will gently but firmly replace that thought with the image of your goal, your worthy ideal. And day by day, you will grow stronger, until by the end of 30 days you will see a remarkable difference not only in how you feel, but in what begins to happen in your life. Think of your mind as a garden. The soil does not argue with you, it does not decide what will grow, it simply returns what you plant. Plant corn, and you get corn. Plant weeds, and you get weeds. It makes no difference to the soil. Your mind works the same way. If you plant thoughts of fear, doubt, and limitation, you will reap circumstances of fear, doubt, and limitation. If you plant thoughts of courage, faith, and expectancy, you will reap circumstances of growth, success, and opportunity. The 30-day test is nothing more than the deliberate act of planting only good seeds and refusing to allow weeds to grow. For 30 days, you become the master gardener of your own mind. Now let me show you the stakes. Fail to take control of your thoughts, and you will drift with the 95% who live by fear and conformity. Your mind will become overrun with weeds, and your life will reflect them. But take this test. Commit yourself fully for 30 days, and you will discover that life responds differently. You will notice new ideas coming to you. You will notice opportunities that were invisible before. People will respond differently to you, because you will be carrying yourself differently. And most of all, you will feel a new confidence, because you will know not hope, not wish, but know that you are in command of your own destiny. Some may say, "But surely I cannot control every thought." And that is true. Thoughts will come uninvited, like birds flying overhead. But you control whether they build a nest in your mind. You control whether you feed them, nurture them, and let them multiply. The discipline of the 30-day test is not to prevent a negative thought from ever appearing, but to prevent it from staying. You see it, you release it, and you return to your vision. Do this faithfully, and you will grow stronger each day. Now let me give you one more picture. Imagine a man at sea, steering a great ship. The compass is fixed on a destination. The winds blow, the currents shift, but as long as he keeps adjusting the wheel back to the compass, he will arrive. That is what the 30-day test does. The winds of doubt will blow, the currents of fear will tug, but as long as you keep steering your thoughts back to your goal, you will reach it. It is not perfection that wins, it is persistence. So here is the challenge. Choose your goal, write it clearly, and for 30 days, think only of that goal. Act as if it were already yours. Live with gratitude and expectancy. Refuse to dwell on fear or limitation, and each morning begin again with renewed resolve. Do this, and by the end of 30 days you will not only see changes in your circumstances, you will be changed yourself. But this raises a greater question, one that separates the few who succeed from the many who fail. For it is one thing to discipline the mind for 30 days. It is another thing entirely to persist for years, long after the novelty has worn off, long after the feelings have faded, long after the road has grown difficult. The next great secret is persistence, the power to continue when others quit. And that is where we must go next. Now, discipline can carry you into the test, but persistence will carry you beyond it. And here is where most men fall away. They can rise to the occasion for a short time. They can summon enthusiasm for a week, perhaps even for a month. They can burn brightly for a season, but when the novelty fades, when the results are slow, when the feelings vanish, they fall back into the old patterns. That is why persistence is the rarest of qualities and the surest mark of greatness. For true success does not come to the man who acts only when he feels like it. True success belongs to the man who persists long after the feeling has left him, who continues steadily in the dark stretches when there is no applause, no excitement, and no visible progress. Think again of the farmer who plants his seed. He sows it in spring, he waters it, he tends the soil. For weeks the ground looks barren. To the eye, nothing is happening. Day after day he works, but still the field is bare. A foolish man would say, "This is pointless. There is no growth. I will stop." But the wise farmer persists because he knows the law. He knows that the growth is happening unseen, beneath the surface, and that in its proper time it will break through. And so he continues, not because he feels thrilled every morning, but because he has decided, and in time the harvest comes in abundance. So it is with every worthy goal. There will be stretches of silence, times when nothing seems to move, seasons when progress is invisible. And in those moments, only persistence will keep a man from abandoning the field. Here is the danger. Most people mistake silence for failure. They believe that if the results do not appear quickly, then nothing is happening, and so they quit often just before the breakthrough. They dig for gold, find nothing, and walk away when they were inches from the vein. They build for years, then stop just before the structure was about to stand. They let go of the wheel just as the ship was about to reach harbor, and afterward they call it fate, or bad luck, or disappointment. But the truth is, they lacked persistence. Consider the story told by Russell Conwell in his famous lecture, Acres of Diamonds. A farmer, restless and unsatisfied, sold his land and wandered in search of riches. He searched the world over, and in the end, he died penniless. Meanwhile, the man who purchased his farm discovered that the land he had sold contained one of the richest diamond mines ever found. The diamonds were right under his feet, but he had not persisted long enough to see them. And so it is with most men. They abandon the very work that would have yielded them success, simply because it grew difficult or tedious, or because they could not see results quickly enough. Riches, opportunities, and fulfillment are often closer than we think, but they are revealed only to the man who persists, and this is why feelings cannot be trusted. Feelings rise and fall like the tide. One day you feel eager, the next day discouraged. One day you feel inspired, the next day heavy and dull. If you live by feelings, you will never finish anything of worth. But if you live by decision, by persistence, you can outlast every change of mood. Success is not a matter of enthusiasm, it is a matter of endurance. The man who continues step by step, day after day, regardless of how he feels, is the man who will see results. Now let's set the stakes plainly. Without persistence, all else is wasted. Your goals may be clear, your visualization strong, your attitude bright, your discipline firm for a time. But if you do not persist, if you stop when the feelings fade, you will waste another year, and another, and another. With persistence, even small steps compound into great progress. With persistence, obstacles that once seemed impossible crumble before you. With persistence, every worthy ideal will, in time, be realized. So here is the challenge. Decide now that you will persist. Decide that no matter how you feel, no matter how slow the progress, no matter how long the road, you will not quit. Say to yourself, I may bend, but I will not break. I may stumble, but I will rise again. I will not stop until my goal is reached. If you do this, you will outlast the 95% who give up, and you will join the 5% who succeed. And yet, even persistence is not the final word. For persistence alone can become a grind, a lonely effort without joy, unless it is tied to a purpose larger than yourself. You are not here merely to endure. You are here to serve, to contribute, to give your gifts to the world. And when you live as if entrusted with a mission, persistence becomes more than endurance. It becomes devotion. And that is where we must turn next, to the larger purpose of time, and the truth that to not waste a year is to live as though heaven itself had sent you. Now we come to the heart of it all, the truth that gives meaning to every hour of work, every act of discipline, every ounce of persistence. For what good is it to succeed outwardly if inwardly you feel empty? What good is it to guard your time, to focus your mind, to direct your days, if the purpose behind it all is too small to satisfy the soul? You and I were not placed here to drift. We were not born merely to survive, to pay bills, to go through routines until the clock runs out. We are here for something greater, and if you would refuse to waste another year of your life, then you must begin to live as if you were sent here with a mission, and I tell you, you were. Think of the difference this makes. A man who believes he is here only to get by, to take care of himself and nothing more, will waste his years in trivial pursuits. He may gather possessions, he may climb ladders, he may impress the crowd for a while, but inside he will remain restless, unsatisfied, forever chasing something he cannot quite name. Why? Because the self is too small a vessel to hold a great life. A man who lives only for himself is like a river that dammed itself up, stagnant, shallow, lifeless. But a man who believes he was sent here with a purpose larger than himself becomes like a river in full flow, deep, strong, refreshing everything it touches. He sees his time not as his own to squander, but as a trust to invest. He asks not only, "What can I gain?" but "What can I give?" And in giving, he receives in return far more than he could have taken. This is the great paradox of life. Prosperity and fulfillment are byproducts of contribution. When you give of yourself, when you serve, when you add value to others, life returns it multiplied. But when you clutch, when you hoard, when you think only of yourself, life grows narrow and poor. To waste your years is to live as if you were here by accident. To redeem your years is to live as if heaven itself entrusted you with gifts, talents, and opportunities, and expects you to use them. I saw this truth in business. When I led men in sales, I discovered that the surest way to grow was not to demand more profit, not to squeeze harder, but to inspire them, to lift them, to help them succeed. And as they grew, the company grew. As they prospered, I prospered. Service became the secret multiplier, and the same law applies to every life. If you live to serve, if you live to contribute, you will not only find success, you will find meaning. And meaning is the one thing that keeps a man from wasting his years. Now, some may resist this. They say, "I have no great mission. I am not called to lead nations or build empires. What could I possibly contribute?" But contribution does not have to be grand to be great. A mother raising her children with love is living her mission. A teacher shaping young minds with care is living his mission. A craftsman perfecting his art and giving his best is living his mission. It is not the size of the stage that matters, it is the sincerity of the service. Whatever your hand finds to do, do it with excellence, with integrity, with the spirit of one who has been entrusted with a sacred task. That is what it means to live as if sent with a mission. And let me tell you what happens when you live this way. Your days take on new weight. Your work takes on new dignity. The hours that once felt wasted now feel invested, because they are tied to something larger than yourself. You begin to see opportunities everywhere to serve, to create, to give, and life, true to its nature, pours back into you blessings you did not expect. You find that people trust you, doors open for you, and resources flow toward you not because you chase them, but because you aligned yourself with the law of service. A river does not need to beg the rain. It flows because it was meant to flow, and in flowing, it becomes strong. So it is with you. Live to serve, and strength, prosperity, and fulfillment will follow. Now ask yourself, what would change if you began to live each day as though you had been sent here with a mission? Would you waste time in idle complaints? Would you drift another year in conformity with the 95%? Or would you rise each morning with gratitude, ready to give your best, ready to treat every person as though they mattered, ready to carry yourself as though your life had meaning because it does? That decision, more than any other, will determine whether the next year is wasted or redeemed. So let us bring the lesson home. To refuse to waste your years, you must see your time as sacred. You must guard it with discipline, direct it with goals, fuel it with attitude, and carry it with persistence. But above all, you must invest it in service, in contribution, in the mission you were sent here to fulfill. Live this way, and not only will you succeed, you will never again look back with regret. For you will have spent your time as it was meant to be spent, with purpose. And that brings us at last to the closing thought, a reminder, an affirmation, and an invitation to take the next step. And so we come to the end of this message, but not to the end of its meaning. For what we have been speaking about is not a set of theories, not a collection of pleasant thoughts to admire and then forget. What we have uncovered together is a way of life, a way of thinking, a way of using the most precious resource you will ever possess, your time. If there is one thing I would have you carry away, it is this: wasting time is wasting life. Every day squandered is a portion of your life you will never see again. Every year, drifted through in conformity, without direction, without purpose, is a year erased from the book of your success. The cost of drifting is not measured in money, but in the life you could have lived and did not. But there is also great hope, and that hope is this: no matter how many years you may feel you have wasted, today is always the right day to begin again. You do not need permission. You do not need perfect conditions. You need only a decision, the decision to set a worthy goal, to hold it clearly in your mind, to expect its fulfillment, to discipline your thoughts, to persist beyond feelings, and to live as if you were sent here with a mission. The man or woman who makes that decision and lives by it can never again be called a drifter. He has left the 95% and joined the small company of those who truly succeed. Think of what we have discovered. Most people waste their years because they conform, because they follow the crowd without questioning where it leads. But you know better now. You know that the cure for drifting is direction. You know that success is the progressive realization of a worthy ideal. You know that visualization and expectancy are the compass of achievement, that life itself is a mirror reflecting your attitude, that discipline and persistence are the tools by which goals are made real, and that the ultimate purpose of time is service, contribution, and living as though heaven itself had entrusted you with a mission. If you live this way, not only will you succeed outwardly, you will find peace within, for you will know that your years were not wasted. So, let me leave you with this affirmation. Say it to yourself each day until it becomes a part of you. I become what I think about. My thoughts are my seeds, my life is my field, and my time is my harvest. I will think greatly, I will act boldly, I will persist faithfully, and I will live as though my life has meaning because it does. And if I live this way, I will never again waste another year of my life. And before we part, let me invite you to take the next step. If you want to know the one law that explains why so many fail and so few succeed, if you want to hear it laid out in the clearest, most powerful terms I have ever given, then watch my message called The Strangest Secret. It is the foundation of everything you have heard today, and it will open your eyes to truths that can change your life forever. Click here, and let us continue the journey together.